And we're live. How's everybody doing today? I'm using a new camera alignment. I think I played with this one time before. The great and powerful Andy told me that one time when he was editing, cutting up my stuff, my videos, he was like, "Oh, you're looking up because I have bifocals because I'm so young," and he said, you keep looking up so high, everybody's looking up your nose, and that felt really good. So I'm trying I'm trying something different. I forgot that I was going to be using this configuration a little bit more, and yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It's it does help because I think sometimes I get really dialed in on the screen. So we have September and June in the chat. Good evening to you, September. Cold break. I'm gonna have to. I need to get scheduled with my friends from Cold Break again. They make my favorite jockey boxes on the planet. I remember when I was with Greyline and I saw them for the first time. They're awesome. So yeah, I did a little bit of content with one of their jockey boxes. It was pretty sweet. And yeah, I need to do some more stuff, and I'm going to have some folks on for a podcast from Cold Break as well. They're in Michigan. They're in the Grand Rapids area, making top of the line jockey boxes. So yeah. And who is this Adam guy anyways? That's a great question. Also in the chat, we've got I am a brewer. I am a brewery. Hello, Adam. Really glad making it this time. Yeah, man. The live streams, it's a magical time. You know what I mean? It's magical for me. Maybe it's magical for you. If it is, bless your heart. That means you're good people. Bobby F is in here. Yo, what's up, Bobby? Yo yourself. Well, listen, we're moving right along. We've got the great and powerful Derek Fortner. We got Bondi in here, bro. We got Brad. What's good? Somebody put a question in. It is a different energy live, Bobby. It is a different energy live. When we can have this interaction, right? You drop something in the chat, and I just, I chop it up. I riff. You know what I mean? Like you zig, I zag. You thrust, I parry. Okay. I think that's swordsman talk. Vince from UK. Hey guys. Vince, hope you're doing well. I see Brad in here. Hey Adam, love the channel. Wish I was closer and could make it out to try some of your beers. Well, listen, everybody, if you're ever in the greater Cincinnati area, they say that Cincinnati is one of the big small cities, or small big cities. You know what I mean? It is one of those things. It's interesting for me around here. I don't know what you're saying, oh boy, about September and June. All right, I'm out here doing my thing. Okay, Cincinnati is interesting because and maybe it was just because there's like only a high school every 70 miles or something where I grew up. People in Cincinnati are very into the high school that they went to. And like there's a lot of like oh, I went to St. X or whatever, right? If I can only remember the other ones. And yeah, people are into it here, where they're from and all that good stuff. But Cincinnati, it's warming up this time of year, everybody. I thought it was hot. We had like 2 weeks of straight 90s. The earth itself, the back 40 here at Mills Manor, was the earth was separating, literally cracking. It's a ton of clay here. Back where I was in Michigan, it was super sandy. It would pour, it would go straight into the earth. Here, it just like it stays up on top, boy. You better be ready. Adventures with Dicko is tuning in all the way from Australia. Welcome, man. Welcome. I don't think I've heard that one before. I'm positive I've not said Dicko before on the show. So yeah, we got Craig in here. Hello from Little Blessings Brewing, Southern Finders, Rangers, Australia. Dude, Australia's representing. All right. Australia's representing. And how could you not? Good-natured people. In my experience, good-natured people. September was eye rolling, oh boying, my thrusting and parrying. Listen, if there's one thing that I've learned from T. Sweezy, September, it's that haters are gonna hate. I'm taking a sip of coffee. You know, I'm taking heat in the chat. You know what I mean? Different mug this week. This was a mug that's representative of something that kind of started things for me. Handmade. Dag boy, right there. It says over here, it says Brews Cruise. There was a competition back in Michigan called the Brews Cruise competition. It was in Ann Arbor, and I happened to do well in that, and that gave me the local paper, small town paper, did a write-up on me because I'd won a handful of medals in that competition. And so they came over to the house and they interviewed me or whatever. Dude, I had a picture of myself that went below the fold. Like a newspaper, it's folded. You open it up, this top bottom. That my picture started on the top of the page and went below the fold. It was wild. But it was one of those things that when the brewery in my town opened, it did put me on the radar. But the Brews Cruise folks, they were giving out these were like the gold medals, these sweet mugs, and I've got a handful of them, and I still love drinking coffee out of them. So yeah. But yeah, if you come out, Bobby is bringing me back to a good point. If you come out to Cincinnati, prepare yourself. Potentially, if you're not, if you're like legitimately from the Midwest, the northern areas of the United States, the Northeast United States, you come here, get ready for it to be a little warmer, a little more humid, and a little more southern than you may expect. Okay. Like one thing I notice here is that people will hammer that first syllable. I grew up saying the word insurance, and I hear people saying insurance, which is different. It's not like full on, but it's like getting closer and closer to saying words like cement, you know? But yeah. What's going on here? Oh, you're up in Cleveland, Bobby? Dag boy. Well, you can, I mean, it's there's a ton of spots down here, man. I think what do we do? Like we have some good festivals. I know Sonder's doing their anniversary party and their Oktoberfest in the fall. They have some cool stuff coming up. Yeah, Derek's saying it's 105 in Austin. I was talking to my boy that lives outside of New Orleans yesterday, and it was hot, especially with the humidity. So yeah, it was it's wild. September and June, he finds himself saying, quite frankly, and as a matter of fact, lately. I don't know what that means. I think that it means that, like things catch up to us, September, as we age. You know what I mean? And look at it, rather you dignified. You know what I mean? Like next thing you know, there's going to be leather patches on the bows. Maybe like a Sherlock pipe. You know what I mean? We all get classier as we age. Andrew Lahota. Andrew Letola. I think I'm saying that right, Andrew. I got ahead of myself. Sometimes when I read these names on the internet, I just say in my head what it's kind of closest to. And yeah, but Andrew asks, and Andrew, welcome to the chat. Good to see you back, man. What's the weirdest hop you've ever brewed with? unexpected flavors or just a whacked out mix of flavors? Well, I'll say this. So I remember the first time that I brewed with, I remember the first time I smelled hops that were onion garlic, and it was crazy. I was at Cartridge, or not Cartridge. I was at Crankers, and I think it was me and my buddy Bill that were working together at the time, and we were using this crazy old crop year of Summit from Willamette Valley, but they were great. They were super fruity, and maybe a little bit of dank, but I mean, yeah, it was a very fruit forward thing, right? So anyways, it was great. And but then I forget what we got. I feel like, I don't know if it was a different lot of Summit or something else, but they busted that thing open and it smelled like bad, Funyuns, like really crazy onion garlic. And that may have been a box of Columbus that we got. And so I knew that they could be a little onion garlicky, but this was way over the top, alliacious, as some might say. But yeah, and I remember back when we were going through all of the hop crisis stuff I think it was in the late aughts, I believe is what you could say. And we were getting 1.5% alpha acid, some French hops. What were they? Crazy stuff. But also, and one hop maybe that I just need to try to give my heart to again. Weirdest hop, and maybe it's not a weird hop. I just can't get over the word Fuggles. Okay. I want to make a 100% Fuggles beer. Okay. I mean, we're talking Fuggles mash hop, Fuggles first wort hop, Fuggle bittering, Fuggle at 45, 35, 25, 15 Whirlpool Fuggles, and then dry hop at Fuggles. It just sounds like a hop that they use in Harry Potter. Okay. And listen, I know Fuggles was way before the Sorting Hat, so don't start with me, but that's what I would do. That's not really what I would do, but that's just a funny hop. But yeah, man, to answer your question, Andrew, the first time that I ever got into it was probably 11-pound bag of something funky. It was weird. It was weird. And Fuggles works really well in a porter. Vince from the UK is weighing in. Honestly, I'm very interested in getting my hands on some newer crop year UK grown hops. It's been a while. I have a meeting coming up with Indie Hops, and I'm probably going to be doing a podcast with some of their people here soon. They do the whole deal. You know what I mean? What I mean by that is they have a hop breeding program. They have proprietary hops and things like that. But yeah, Andrew follows up. But yeah, so Vince, in all fairness, first of all, I think it just sounds funny. But second of all, I need to get back in and I need to get my hands on some, recent crop year UK hops, whether that be, and I'd also be interested to know if there's new stuff that's being grown there, right? What new varieties are being grown there, if they are. But yeah, maybe something a little bit to dig into. September just got some fresh WKG. EKG is East Kent Goldings. What's WKG? The Fug, boy, that's what I would call that that young Fug. Maybe that's what it would be. It would be young Fug. Makes it sound like a rapper, like a hop, a rapper just made out of hops. Young Fug in the house. Andrew, coming back onto this hoppy topic. I just had one of those onion garlic beers from a local brewery. If I was brewing that, I would have picked up the phone to the other breweries and begged and pleaded for any other hops to brew. Yeah, man, it's not easy. It's not kill a fug in the house. It is rough, and I know people have different preferences for the volume of that onion garlic kind of thing in beers. And yeah, what's WGV? Are you just trying to get me to say things, September? And the chat right now is killing it with Fug Life. We got it all. I mean, you never know, man. If maybe if someday I put out some beautiful little, 3.5% cast tight beer, which is something which we might dig into a little bit today. What would it be? What's it called? Spoiler alert. Something that we're going to talk about later. Spoiler alert. So yeah, bam. Listen, you guys, but before I get too worked up, did I already read? I didn't already read this. Do you know how much I care? Do you know how much I care about you? If you're ever questioning how much I care about you, think about this. I was before we went live, I have some wording tweaks both to my live read for Blickman and just like my intro to the show. And I was just quietly reading it out loud because I don't like to stumble on it. It always makes me feel silly when I stumble on it. When I stumble on it. So I was actually practicing, and that's for you, baby. Okay, that's for you, the listener. That's for you, the community. You know what I mean? This squad. Welcome to the 2024 July live stream Q&A podcast. My name's Adam. Welcome to the did I already say that? Check out Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and see all the long form brewer interviews we've done. After you subscribe, please leave a review and comment as well, because it really helps support the work I am doing. Also, if you are new to the channel or podcast, go to Adam Makes Beer on YouTube, click the playlist tab, and see tons of info, brew days, techniques, tutorials, over 796 videos now. As always, if you are getting value out of this content, please follow, rate, like, comment, and share with your brewing friends and craft beer enthusiast homies. And if you have the means and feel as if my content has benefited you, consider a channel membership for $2.99 a month. What does it give you? It gives you priority on getting your questions answered live in this podcast. You heard? Also, you can drop a super chat tip in the comments. If you have the scratch to show me a little bit of love, that's great. If you don't, there's a reason why it's free on YouTube, baby. I'm very excited to say that July's Industry Pro live stream will more than likely be Tuesday, July 23rd at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with guest David Lentz of Brewed Fiscally. DL, as I like to call him, David Lentz, Davey, the big Dave. Dave is somebody that I used to work with at Sauce Boss, Sauce Daddy, up there in Cleveland, and he is doing. He started a business called Brewed Fiscally, and he helps out breweries with things on the accounting side. Very smart guy. I like him. I don't know. I don't always say that. I always try to be really honest about folks when I talk about them, and I've always liked David. I think he's a good-hearted man. He's a young dad, and he and his wife just have a couple of small ones, and I don't know, man. I've spent a little time with him. I think he's a good guy. He's a smart guy, and he's like legitimately passionate about things in the accounting side, and he has an awesome background of working with breweries and restaurants. And so kind of building on this theme, I've been getting so many questions lately about, going pro, opening your own place, or questions from people that are operating their own place, tips and tricks, stuff like that on the operations side. I wanted to sit down and talk to David kind of about the big outlook on the financials on the brewery side. I have to tell you, man, it's really wild out there, whether you're on brewery and planning, like one of those pages on Facebook, or you're on the brewery and Reddit. It is there's a lot of negativity and misery out there right now. I'm not going to tell you that I think it's a good time or a bad time to open a brewery, get into the industry, or what have you. I do think there's I do think it seems like that there are some people that end up making strong long-term moves by making moves when the market is down. Okay. We're gonna get into a couple of things. Don't draw huge conclusions off of what I just said and then bang on the keyboard and tell me how stupid I am about my outlook on the business or not. That's a whole separate thing. Wait until I get into like a little bit more deep dive answers on some things and then tell me how stupid I am. But it'll be a good conversation with David because I think it's always good to be able to speak to people with a lot of background, hands-on understanding of what makes those businesses work. And I think for a lot of folks like us that are coming in from the beer passion side of things, right? Sometimes we need those people to help refocus us, or at least let us know certain things we need to be looking for, right? So Dave's a great guy. I love him. I'm 99% sure that's the date and time. So July 23rd at 7 p.m. Again, that's brewed fiscally. If you're following me on Instagram, I'm following them. I believe he's at brewed fiscally on Instagram. Check him out. Share his page around. He's a good dude. And get ready to drop some questions for us to discuss, because I think this is a really unique conversation that you have a chance to participate in by getting those operations, those financial operations questions in. Speaking of amazing people, let's talk about my dear friends at Blickman Engineering. Starting a brewery is a big step. That's why Blickman Engineering is here to support you along the way. Since 2006, they've helped hundreds of breweries succeed with nano brewery tailored equipment, including the new 3.5 barrel Pro Surface electric brewing system. This new innovative brewhouse reduces maintenance and saves brewers at least 30 minutes every brew day, as the heating elements are mounted under the kettle and host over 20,000 watts of power in both 2-vessel and 3-vessel configurations. You should Google this and check it out. The time saving they're talking about is you don't have to pull your heating element and run a separate cycle on that or manually scrub it, because the heating element is dispersed across the bottom. It's interesting. It's unique. I'm not explaining it the best right here, but you need to go to their website and check it out. Their competitively priced equipment lets you start fresh, offering a full suite of brew houses from 1 to 15 barrels, matching cellaring equipment, keg washers, grain mills, and accessories specifically for the nano brewer. Ready to go pro or just exploring options? Contact Phil or Tom at proseries@blickmanengineering.com. Again, that's proseries@blickmanengineering.com. My friends at Blickman can get you up and running quickly for a faster ROI. Blickman Engineering is proud to sponsor this channel and is committed to helping brewers at every stage of their journey. If you haven't checked out my interview with Tom Miller from Blickman, which was last month, was that last month? Yeah, last month. Good. It was a lot of fun. Good conversation. It was one of my higher streamed, one of my higher viewed streams. You should dig in, check it out. Tom's got some unique viewpoint on things. Smart guy, funny guy. So let's see here. Some more Fuggles references. September wants to know if I like David so much, why don't I marry him? That's giving me a real Pee Wee Herman feel. September. When's the last time you watched Pee Wee's Big Adventure? Let's see, what else are we doing here? Yeah, Andrew says that's a live stream talking about the live stream with David from Brewed Fiscally. That's a live stream I will not miss. I'll never go pro, but I'm fascinated by all the behind the curtain stuff that helps a brewery make money. Heck yeah, man. And the stuff is applicable. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's like, just because we're talking the brewing world here, that there's stuff that goes across disciplines. All right. Well, let's see, man. Is this I'm wondering. I need to see if at some point, like, if I can actually like have, maybe at some point my podcast will be fancy enough to where I'll have sounds and like lead-ins to things. But if you're wondering what that sound is, that sound means it's time for the July Career Corner. Just so you know, in the very back of my mind, my wheels started spinning really quick, and it was like, what theme song could I make up for the July Career Corner? And I almost started trying to like freewheeling like riff like a song, but that just might be because of the coffee, man. I don't know. It was probably best that I pumped the brakes on that, but also it could have been amazing. So, I mean, you never know. July Career Corner, man. It's been interesting. It's been interesting. We're into the thick of it at work right now. We're cranking at full capacity. We are going to be adding another 120 barrel fermenter this month. So we'll be able to slam a whole bunch of You Betcha through that, which is our New England style IPA. Yeah, I mean, we're busy. We're getting a new hire trained in, and she's doing really well, and so that's exciting. I see a lot of growth in our team. Guys stepping up. We just did kind of like a professional development focused on teamwork, and so I worked up a presentation on that, and I felt good about it, man. I feel like it was really positive. It was more like question answer discussion kind of thing. We started off by talking about like trying to get in a mindset of gratitude a little bit, and went around the table and talked about times where they had felt appreciated or valued while working at Sonder, and everybody had great examples of it, because I do believe Sonder does a good job with that. So we got into that a little bit, and then we just started. It was a good conversation. We're not going to replay the whole thing in here right now, but it was good. It was good. So I feel good about how the team is performing. Usually this is the most hectic time of year, but like things have been smooth, and that's really a tip of the hat to the folks on the floor, the men and women that work on the floor there at Sonder, because everybody's really stepping up and growing. It's really great to see. It's really great to see. So that's been good. What else? I've been really focused in the past month. I'm involved in monthly meetings that I do anything from kind of direction of the business to financial stuff, and that's not stuff that I've had a lot of background with. And so I'm always trying to learn new stuff. So this past month, I've really been diving into the business side of operations. The first thing I did was I started re-listening, or I went back to the podcast called Restaurant Unstoppable. And I would really recommend that if you are in the operation side, or you want a better notion of that, Restaurant Unstoppable is a fantastic podcast. My man, I'm forgetting, is it Eric Cacciatore, I believe, is the host. He's actually he bought a camper and he drives across the United States, interviewing independent, well, not just independent restaurant owners, but primarily, I believe, independent restaurant owners, and just talking about their success stories, what they've learned, sharing tips and tricks, and there's beautiful stuff in there, man. So I've really been hammering that content because I want to have a better understanding of how to operate a business / restaurant, which is ultimately what most of these breweries are that we work for. I've also read the book called Profit First, which is very interesting. I'm not a big accounting guy, and there's a lot of people on Restaurant Unstoppable. There's a lot of independent restaurant owners that were really pointing to this book as like, well, of course you've read that, and that's a must read. And so I'm like, well, I need to read that book. So I read it. Super worthwhile. I'd throw it out there, throw out a challenge. The author, I'm not certain what the author's name is. I can look it up real quick. He, I know he does a ton of podcasts. So maybe if you don't feel like diving in on the book, purchasing the book from Audible, it's Mike Michalowicz. Michalowicz, Mike Michalowicz, Profit First. Super interesting. And I encourage you to check it out. I encourage you to check it out because it's an interesting angle on things. And then also this month, earlier in the month, I ended up going to an OSHA 10-hour training, which was very good. I got to see my boy from 50 West, Ryan, one of the brewers here in the area that I absolutely love. Just a great guy. Loves what we do, loves making beer, loves trying to be great at it. Those are the people I like talking to when it comes to beer. So that's kind of been my thing over the past month. I do this because I try to stay driving forward, pushing forward, always learning new stuff. So I'm just passing along, what I'm attacking over, or what I have attacked over the last month. Maybe attack makes it sound a little excessive. Maybe it makes it seem a little aggressive. But baby, I can only do what I can do. That is the July Career Corner. Let's give some love to the chat. We've got, man, the chat's filling up. We got Spoonding in here. Okay. We got Hugh in here. We have Brad. Brad, let me get back to that question. Yeah, man. Local, good to see you. Jay Speeds. I got 2 questions from you tonight, homie. So stick in there. Brad Cabela says, speaking of onion and garlic, how do you feel about Galaxy hops? I haven't used them in years because they got pretty bad. I've heard the quality is back, so I'm tempted to give them another go. Yeah, Galaxy is one of those ones that, he continues, maybe I used them wrong. It was super harsh and never cleaned up even after months in the keg. I've heard that. I've heard that quite a bit, and I think it can be a crop year thing, when they were picked, when they were harvested. So yeah, I've heard, for a while, Galaxy used to be the bomb, right? People still say the bomb, don't they? And then it kind of started falling off, and I don't know exactly what was going on there, but I have a feeling that it's either something, more than likely, it's a harvest thing when those hops are harvested. And then you start moving out from there. Maybe there's some stuff on the processing side. But yeah, when Galaxy's great, it's great. But when it's not, it's rough and it sticks around. Did the mute button work when I coughed before? Because Hugh said, quote, that mute button ain't working, farty McFarty. First of all, that hurts. Words mean things. Okay. Yeah. Loco, what does my accounting do? We have a bookkeeper? Yeah, we do have it might be shared a little bit with Sonder, the brewery where I work. I don't know why I had to say that. But yeah. Adventures with Dicko. We might come back to this. I might need a little more information. But it says, hey, Adam, I've been homebrewing for 3 years. I've stepped up to an Apollo snub nose fermenter from Keg King. Just wondering if a unitank is worth it for small batch brewing. Dude, I mean, yeah, as long as the equipment can be appropriately cleaned and is quality enough, you can get some PSI or some bar into that vessel safely. I don't have any problem with unitanking stuff, you know. I think it's a great way to maintain carbonation in a beer. Potentially better foam. You have the capacity to be dropping yeast. The main thing is can you really tightly control temperature on it? That's the big thing. Can you get it clean and can you control temperature? Yeah, you know. So yeah, I mean that would be my thought with something like that. So yeah, I think yeah, with that as a rule of thumb, you'll be all set with that stuff. I think unitanking is great. Trevor Daniels. Hey, the chat's popping today with questions, ladies and gents. Trevor Daniels, how much do you take into account inventory management when designing a beer recipe? Do you try and make an effort to use full bags? Yeah, man, that's a good question. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, you know, a lot of times, most of my career, I've been in a pub scenario. I've done distro brewing as well. We're doing that at Sonder. I did distro at Crankers, at Cartridge, at some other places that I worked. But you know, the nice thing is on the pub side, you know, you can have a little flex. You know, if you got a batch of IPA on, and you know you're a half point high or low, you can just change the board, change your tags. You know what I mean? It's not that big of a deal. Typically, what I do is, Trevor, is I would look at like what my main brands are. You know, you're gonna have 4 beers that are the super majority of what you pour in your place. And so I would always keep those. I try to keep those ingredients on hand, you know, and then I'll use that stuff across the board. So, you know, for instance, I use a lot of, I try to pick a base malt that I can use on everything, with the exception of like the really fancy lagers that I want to have, you know, like a little bit more continental character. And so, you know, you will spend up for that a little bit. But you said at the end of the question, do you try and make an effort to use full bags? Absolutely. I don't want, you know, I don't want that. I'm not sure what size thing you have, what size brew house. But if you're at a 15-barrel brew house, it's pretty easy, especially maybe some roast malt. You might have some roast malt floating around, because it's hard to use full sacks for that. But when it comes to that, I always like to do that. New drinking game, and drink whenever Emma says super majority. Do I say that? I didn't even know that was one that I didn't even know that was one that I said. Jay, Uh, but yeah, full bags. Yeah, I mean, especially base malts, Munichs, you know, character malt, stuff like that. You know, the ones I will split is I don't like to round up with roast malt, with crystal malt. I will keep partial bags of those, but everything else I just take whatever it gives me by the full bag, really. So yeah. Thank you for the question, Trevor. Yeah, cowboy. I don't know if you're talking about the angle of the thing here, but I mean, hey, if you're loving the layout, if you're loving the layout, that makes me happy. Okay, September. I want to jump into this one. September and June, if possible, could you give a real quick hop schedule and varieties for an American IPA? I currently do 65 IBU with Magnum at 60, Centennial at 15, and at 0 minutes, or at Whirlpool. Old school, I know. First of all, nothing wrong with old school IPA. I think those beers are built a little bit differently, though. If you have, because we didn't talk much about the grist on this beer September, but I think that there's a big thing here. You know, if you're building up the color in that, if there's any crystal malt in there, that's going to affect the way that 65 IBU comes across. So, you know, you might need, depending on that grist, if you're running like what I would call like one of those classic Midwest style IPAs, the ones that trend toward golden or orange a little bit more, that does have some character malt in there, you might need that full 65 IBU, okay, to really have the beer be balanced appropriately. However, if you're rotating to a paler version of American IPA, I think you might be able to peel back some of that bitterness a little bit, because if you build it the exact same way, when you have that residual sweetness potentially from some character malt, the balance in that beer might not be exactly the same. Okay, so if you wanted to stick with an old school feel on this September, what I would potentially do is, you didn't quite give me a he said 96% pills, 4% Cara 45. Okay, so you're not like you're not straw colored, but maybe you're like in the gold range. That would be my guess, but probably not as dark as some that I've seen. Yeah, you know, I mean, if you're going to do a build like that, it depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking to prop up flavor and aroma a little bit, I would look at maybe dialing back your bittering addition. So whatever you're getting in your bittering addition, I would cut back by at least like 33%. So cut your upfront bitterness by 33%. And then you're going to be sliding some of those IBU into those later additions in your kettle. Okay. And if you like the Centennial approach, that's great. I say keep the heart and soul of it the same. If you have, you know, a Cascade Centennial build, something like that, that's great. But grab something a little bit different. Grab something, whether it be a little bit of Simcoe, a little bit of Citra, a little bit of Chinook. Like, not everything has to be like the biggest, shiniest new hop, right? But then build up that 10-minute and Whirlpool, or those late editions, prop those up. And if you're wondering how to build those into your calculator, I always counted those Whirlpool editions, and I know we're using similar size systems, especially from the vantage point that I'm speaking from. I always counted those Whirlpool editions as 20-minute editions, depending on what software you're using, and we can dig into that a little bit more. But you're definitely gonna get some character out of them as far as bitterness goes. But mess around with it like that. Pull back on that bitterness from the 60-minute edition, and look at fleshing it out by loading it up a little bit more in the whirlpool or in the late kettle, right? Just keep an eye on when you need to cut your wort going through your heat exchanger, so you're not plugging up your exchanger with hot matter or getting a whole bunch of hot matter into the kettle. But yeah, man, it sounds exciting to me. I'm interested. I'm interested to hear what tweaking that you end up getting with that. So we got Tyler in the house. Tyler, I don't know if I've seen that name in here before. So good to see you, sir. We got Beer Nut 100. What's good, man? Trevor's working on a 10 barrel in Knoxville, Tennessee, trying to lean out the inventory on hand. And you can simplify stuff, Trevor. You know, I think a lot of times, unless you're really featuring a base malt, dude, just go a little more uniform, you know, across the board. Yeah, think leaner as far as that. It'll just make it easier. You're not going to have grain aging out. You're not going to have inventory issues. You know, the longer it sits there, the more likely it's going to get chewed up by a mouse or whatever, right? So just sitting on inventory isn't always a good thing. Well, welcome, Beer Nut. Good to see you. Yeah, and Tyler was saying he just did a Midwest style IPA with Simcoe Amarillo Centennial. Beautiful. Yeah, I love that. I love that. I love that. Next question is from Cowboy Brewer, Channel All-Star. How much can a wort grant help with efficiency on brew days? My old system had the mash tun hooked right to the pump, and I always noticed a gap along the outer edge. This is such a great question, Cowboy. And starting gravity readings were always off. The new system has a grant wort in a wort grant included. September, we're gonna jump back into this in just a minute with you, man. So yeah, so imagine this. So you have your mash tun, and you know you have stainless steel piping that's going over to your kettle. If you have a grant, you go from your mash tun to a grant, another vessel, and then that wort runs to the kettle or is pumped to the kettle, right? But if you remove that grant and you just have a line going to a pump and that's pushing straight over, and if at any point you create too much suction on that grain bed, that's why you had that leaning grain bed, Cowboy, that you mentioned before. It said that I always notice a gap along the outer edge. So you see this gap form. Sometimes it'll almost look like it's leaning, right? Because what you're having happen is you're having that sparge water hit the top, finding the path of least resistance, and is running down along the outside edge. So you only have a minimal, or you have less sparge water going through your grain bed, which is meant to be going through and rinsing the sugars through and into the kettle, right? But instead, you're channeling, and so you're just drawing water down along the side. You're still rinsing the grain bed, but not efficiently, because you used to have straight water, sparge water going down the side. And you can hit different different efficiency numbers with that, right? And so that's the problem with just having the pump right there and not a grant, because you can start that pump up too fast and then compress a portion of the bed, the whole bed, and it can be a big mess. We're not even getting into a stuck mash here, which could also happen, or a stuck lauter. Yeah. So how much can a wort grant help with my efficiency on brew days? So really what it's helping is let's reframe the language. It is helping with your efficiency, but it could be helping with not compacting or channeling your grain bed, right? So functionally, that's what's happening. And because you can do that, so you can if you're pumping too hard off of a grant, the grant just runs dry, right? And your pump runs dry, and then you have to reprime it or whatever. But it's not putting any vacuum on the bottom. What you're controlling, how you're controlling the workflow into the grant is by a valve. I'm assuming sometimes it's by a dial valve, like a fine touch dial valve. If you look at my brew day videos that I did at Cartridge, we had one of those really sweet, tight control dial ones. Very good stuff. You can have that, or you'll have a butterfly valve there or something. But that's so it's gravity only that you're driving that with that valve, right? So that's really what's happening with your setup, man. And so in that way, yes, it can help you stop running off too quickly through your grain bed and getting channeling and whatnot. So yes, you may be able to find that you're getting more consistent efficiency in using that grant. Yep. Thank you, Cowboy, for the question. We're jumping back to September. So September was just talking about an IPA build, and he says, I calculate my 60-minute edition at 20%, 28% efficiency. And my 15-minute edition at 14 and my Whirlpool at 5. Does that sound about right to you? Gosh, I'm gonna have to look. I don't have the ability to send them to White Labs, for example, for numbers. And yeah, September, I don't think you need to, man. So first of all, this is just one of those things where I think you can drive a lot of this by sensory. So if you're looking at like half, and so how I look at this equation, man, is this. I say, so at 15 minutes, you get half of what you get from a 60-minute edition. Yeah, I mean, I would kind of math it up like that, and I would kind of count it in that 14 to 16% range. And I would run with it from there. That's how I would input it. Yeah, I forgot you've got an Excel sheet that you're running with. Yeah, that would be the utilization rate. I think you would probably good counting that in the 15 to 16% utilization range for like a Whirlpool type edition. Yeah, but again, I'm not. It's tough with those beers. I do think those later editions will be a little bit softer than what the exact same amount of IBU at 60 is. But yeah, that's my thoughts. Yeah, that stinks. Yeah, and if it's doing that for you, Cowboy, that's maybe the new design will be a little bit better. All right, so you have the work grant on there right now. Keep me in the loop with how that goes, man. Yeah, and September says that I got those guidelines from the Brewers Calculations book. Yeah, and what's it called? It's awesome. I have it somewhere. Oh, do I have it or do I have it? Am I a man of my word or I'm a man of my word? Yeah, if you want to do math, get in there, son. It's right there. September. All right. Next question is from Benny and the Jets on YouTube. Hey, Adam makes beer. I have a brew pub and restaurant in the world. This person wanted to be anonymous. And also, if you ever want to ask anonymous questions, I always go out of my way to say who it is. And so if you don't want me to say who it is, let me know. Because I get it. There's nothing, there's no judgment. I have a brew pub and restaurant in the world. They are very food focused, but what are some interactive activities or training that would help my floor team develop a passion for beer and brewing? I think so. We're getting into this kind of an operations question, right? I think that a really great way to do that is to get people into your space. Okay. I think it would be great to get as many forward facing people in your company, people that do front of house service, back for brew days, for packaging days, and for you to share your excitement with them about what you're doing back there. Right. And then come up with, I would field questions from people, from your front of house people, the typical questions people ask about the beers, and kind of make like a little hit list of, they don't need to be like, master cicerones, but find out what the baseline stuff people ask is. Show them some of the magic that happens back there, right? And I'm smiling, but I mean, like, I kind of mean that, right? Like, it's beautiful what we're doing back there, man. It's an awesome thing. So, share that magic with them, and then see how you can support them for the typical questions they get. Give them a reason to be passionate about what you're doing in the brewery, right? Explain to people why something is special, and it doesn't always have to be the minutia. Sometimes it can be the big picture stuff. Sometimes you can just focus on the fact that, if this is your thing. I mean, I love the fact that I can get local ingredients, or I can get ingredients from the other side of the world, and I can pay respects to a traditional a beer that's been brewed for 200 years, right? You can connect people to heritage, tradition. You can go outside of that. You can get people excited about novelty, right? So that's kind of how I would plug in on it. But you need to be able to provide your people with, why should they be excited about what you're serving, right? And sometimes showing the process can help. And again, you don't need to get them lost in the weeds on everything, but just big picture, what's happening, why is it awesome, right? And then kind of collect those big questions that you hear over and over and over, and help come up with, concise, clean answers that will get your staff paid. Sometimes I don't like to just go profit motivator, but the reality is the more they can dial into the interests of the guest in the tap room, the more money they're going to make, right? So sometimes you can plug that side of the motivation as well. But Benny, I appreciate the question, and stick with it. Keep grinding, man. I think I think you're looking into some of the right things. Yeah, and Bondi brings up a good point here, and you're going to see this in my brew day videos online too, everyone. If you go back and look at the brew day videos that I was doing at Cartridge, I got the rug pulled out from under me here. September, you want me to say like your screen name or your real name? Bondi, Channel All Star. No Grant here, but I let the mash tun drain over to the kettle with gravity until it stops flowing. Yeah, man. If you watch those brew days, I don't turn the pump on for a while. Now that I had an over under, so I had the mash lauter ton above the hot liquor, and that was above the kettle. Okay. Now at a certain point, I had to start using the pump because the level of liquid in the kettle would get higher than the level of liquid in the mash tun. But yeah, go by gravity if you can, for as long as you can. I think that's a great point, Paul. Let's see here. All right. Hey, Craig. Craig Blessing. Good to see you. I don't know if I've seen you in here before. So if I have, I apologize, but it's always great to see you. Next question comes from Ian on Facebook. I thought this one was interesting. This one was not a question for me, but it was in one of those brewery Facebook groups, and I don't remember which one off the top. And it says, if you owned your own building, had no debt, everything is paid for, and your only debt is minimal liabilities, would you undercut your local competition by selling cheaper pints because it's better for the customer's interests? I think this is interesting, and you might disagree with me, but I'm gonna ramble on this one a little bit. So we've used the terminology before. Well, we haven't. I mean, Bart Watson and I've mimicked it. I've repeated it. Said that the industry is maturing, and I will say one of the things that I love about brewing and is probably the primary animating spirit behind this podcast, this YouTube channel, is the fact that so many people have freely shared with me their experience over the years. I think it's essential. I think it's a core thing about what we do, and that's just me. That's just the way I brew. I view this pro brewing thing that we're all doing. It doesn't have to be your thing. That's fine. If you're of the impression that, listen, I had to grind it out on my own, trial and error, learn this stuff. My information is my information. You do you. I think I don't have a problem with it. But my experience has been, I've had so many people share with me. I'm going to share. Okay. And also I just love it. It's my personality. Okay. So I think there's an interesting thing to where, there's this line where we say, well, we're all in it together. And I think there's elements of it that are true. I think there's tremendous room for collegiality. And well, not just, I don't want to use the word fraternity because that's just brotherhood, but obviously, we have not just men working in this, but like, something collegial, right? We should support each other. We should support each other in getting better. At the same point, depending on what stage you are at in your career or whatever, I mean, the reality is that we're either working for or we are operating businesses. So if I were in this situation, and I have the ability to do that, say everybody's running $7 pints, and this is just argument's sake, so don't try to poke holes in this scenario. And I, for some reason, I'm able to make the exact same IPA, and my costs are 75% reduced, and so I can make the same amount of money and maybe even more money still with a $5 pint than the person who's making the same beer for a $7 pint. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Like at the end of the day, as a business, you're responsible for keeping your doors open, and people paid. If you feel as if there's an advantage, a competitive price advantage to that can be leveraged, I mean, that's fine. I mean, this is what I mean. Rheingeist can make beer for a hell of a lot cheaper than I could at Cartridge. You know what I mean? And we're in the same market. We're on the same store shelves in some cases. I don't think it's unfair that they have, economy of scale. It's just a reality, but I do think it's an interesting thing. And I was dipping into the comment section on this, and I think you see two different, you see almost kind of two different, almost parodied viewpoints. like some like the super idealist type one that's like, oh, you could never do that to your brothers and sisters in the industry. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, you can. You could. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to be bad to people. Like if you have an economic advantage that, if you have an economic advantage, like finding a situation where everything is, like where you're in a very stable situation business wise, maybe leverage that and see if it brings people in. Maybe it won't. The interesting thing is sometimes people do want to pay more. Craft is kind of one of those affordable luxuries. Great beer, world-class beer is cheap compared to world-class wine. You know what I mean? There's a lot more people that can afford world-class beer than there are that can afford world-class wine. So I don't know. But I thought it was an interesting discussion point because some people are like going like super hardcore, Jack Donaghy with it, and kind of going like typical like big business fat cat type outlook. And some people were going like, we're all here for each other and stuff. I probably lies somewhere in between, but yeah, I don't know. September says, let's be frank here. There's a lot of subpar beer going on out there. After a period of time, either they need to stop or get out, not pee in the pool and introduce the masses to bad beer. And, I do think there's something to be said for that, September, because, yeah, I don't know. But the main thing I'm focused on is, like I said, I'm trying to learn more and more about the operations side. I feel like that might actually be, understanding the business side might actually be the actual secret sauce rather than the best beer on earth. Obviously aiming for great beer, you know what I mean? Hiring talented people, taking good care of them, but yeah. So anyways, I thought that was an interesting conversation point. For those of you that are out there looking for information, though, on whether it be Reddit or some of these Facebook groups or what have you, don't get discouraged, because if you post any question, some poor guy posted on Reddit. He's like, oh, hey, I'm about to retire. He had some money or whatever, and he wanted to open a little brewery, and he just had some questions. And he said, I'm just brainstorming or whatever. Dude, people are downvoting him, and like he had a negative, like overall, like stupid Reddit score or whatever. I was like, dude, it's just some guy asked a question. All these super bitter pros just crapping on him. I hate that stuff, man. If you're that miserable. I actually heard some stuff on what one was it? It was one of those. It was one of the ones where it's like, bro, if you are not like, I don't know. There's some groups out there that are pretty wild, and some people would not have liked some of the stuff that I've said in the past about, if you're miserable, you should stop doing what you're doing that's making you miserable, rather than just wishing everything was different and drunkenly posting on Facebook. But you do you. Next question comes from Dre. I'm popping into the lemon lime, ladies and gents. Kroger seltzer, sponsor me. Your boys in the streets. Dre on YouTube. Hey, Adam, when you transfer your beer, are you using only CO2? I have been balancing the pressure from fermenter to bright, then transferring slowly by itself, then using a pump to push the rest of the way. Can you show your setup for transferring or explaining your process? Also, do you think I'm oxidizing the beer by transferring with the pump? Dre, great question. First of all, it's my understanding that if you have a great pump and your seals are all in line, you can pump that beer. I personally, that doesn't make me feel comfortable. This might not be science, but I don't pump beer unless I absolutely have to pump beer. So that's just me. I have done a lot of things with CO2 pushing beer around. When I transfer beers, and you can actually dig back probably in the tutorial section. So go to the Adam Makes Beer YouTube page, Dre, go to playlists, tutorials, and I'll show how I prep a tank for transfer and the transfer process. All right. What I do is I prefer to get my fermenter with the cold crashed beer and 15 psi on that tank or close to 1 bar. And then my receiving tank that I'm going to be transferring into, there's a host of other things that go into this: cleaning, sanitizing, purging, getting rid of all your sanitizer, stuff like that. But dropping the pressure in the receiving tank down to like 12 or 13 psi, or maybe like 0.85 bar. And then, so that means your receiving tank is a little lower. You get so you would have 15 psi going into your fermenter. You might need a little bit more depending on how fast that transfer goes. And then that differential, and then you'll bleed off and you'll try to keep a 2 to 3 pound psi difference between the two tanks, the receiving tank, the bright tank, being lower than the main tank. Do that gently. Take your time with it. Don't rip through it. You'll get foaming, and you might end up blowing foam through your CIP arm on your receiving tank, things like that. I don't feel like you need to be pumping in that scenario. The question about oxidizing, I think there's a number of other things that you're going to be oxidizing your beer with before that. For instance, a poorly purged receiving tank, oxidizing sanitizer in line, not rinse from your tank. Okay. Poor block and bleed technique as you're getting ready to start filling the receiving tank. Things like that. I think that will get you more oxidation. I'm just not a fan of moving beer mechanically unless I have to. I push 15 barrels of beer to another floor using CO2. You can totally do it. You just want, to keep that 2 to 3 pound differential lower on your receiving side, and you can move it, man. I don't think you need to do it with the pump. I wouldn't. It's just one more element that you can be adding. So, where something can go wrong. All right. Dre, thank you for the question. I appreciate it. I think that was the first question I got from you too. So thank you. All right. So let's see here. Next question is from Jay Spees on YouTube, Channel All-Star. Nuggets of gold inside that stream of consciousness, rambling diatribe as always, brother. First of all, have I ever been known to go on a diatribe? Question. I have always heard that you should add O2 if you should not add O2 to your wort if the fermenter is greater than 80 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit, as this can lead to oxidative risks. Bear in mind, this was advice from the late 90s when I started brewing, so it's probably long debunked by now, but it's one of those things that's just crystallized in my brain. So first of all, let's run through the things that we know. Jay, thanks for the question. Very much appreciated. We know that chemical reactions happen faster at warmer temperatures. Okay, so it's me not being Captain Science. It's very possible. It wouldn't surprise me if the rate of oxidation would happen faster at warmer temperatures. Okay, but, and that's a big but, Jay. I think that if you have yeast, whether you're using a Belgian strain, a farmhouse strain, a Kvike strain, and you're going that warm 80, 85 degrees into your fermenter, the idea is that you have yeast in there that is ready for oxygen. Okay. So what I would more target is I would try to be more aware of the oxygen level that that particular yeast strain wants, craves, needs, and chase that. Okay. Because what should be happening is one of the very first things is that yeast should be uptaking that oxygen. Okay. But I wouldn't look at it through the lens that you're looking at it with. I would dial into how oxygen needy those yeast strains are. Now, the other thing that you'll want to think about too is it may be more challenging to get oxygen into solution at those warmer temperatures. So it might not be a standard 1-to-1 plug-in here, right? Because if you're running 4 liters per minute on a lager, you're going to get a lot more oxygen into solution than you will if you're running 4 liters per minute. 4 liters. Is it per minute or per hour? Why am I don't know. It's 4 liters per minute, I think. 4 liters per minute on an 85-degree beer, because that gas goes into solution so much more readily at a cold temp as opposed to a warm temp. So there's going to be some things to check out there. But that's my takes on it, Jay. And yeah, that's the information I would search out. As always, Jay, I appreciate the question. Okay, next question is from Out of Body Gaming on YouTube. Perhaps this is a stupid question. No stupid questions. OOBG. Does carbing inside the unitank make transferring a pain because of the foam? I just recently purchased a spike unitank, and this is the first time I am able to do something like this. So, does it make carbing inside? Does carbing inside the unitank make transferring a pain? Transferring will not be a pain if you maintain a similar head pressure. Okay, so if you're going from one vessel to another, try to maintain a 2 to 3 psi difference. 2 to 3 psi lower for the receiving tank, and maintain the pressure is that's allowable for your vessel. For that spike tank, it might be 15 psi or close to 1 bar. I'm not certain. But yeah, because if you get that differential too big or start shooting that beer in there too fast, it's going to foam like crazy. Okay, so that's what you want to be careful of. You want to make sure that you're degassing the receiving tank at a nice slow rate. If you see that the pressure gauge on the tank that you're transferring into is dropping too rapidly, just close it and wait for the two tanks to equalize, right? It's not a panic situation. If you have a supply of 15 psi on the tank of origin, you can just let them both equalize to 15 and then start bleeding that other one down again, the receiving tank down again, and then you'll start seeing liquid move again. All right. So yeah, go nice and gentle. That's the way that you want to do that. I appreciate the question, Out of Body Gaming. Next question is from Nick on Reddit. What is your opinion on the matter of removing the manway gasket from a fermenter or bright tank during the CIP cycle? Here's an interesting one. Not a lot of this is a sketchy one. Like, I've seen a lot of people do a lot of different things. I worked at a place that, keep them on the door. You keep them on the door. And I've seen people soak them and then manual scrub afterwards, right? And then I've seen people put the racking arm inside, pointing up inside the vessel, and then they just throw the manway gasket over that and loop it so it's hanging in there. Maybe that too, Ideally, though, with all of our cleaning solutions, we have agitation and the appropriate temperature, chemical density is not the word. Chemical concentration, temperature, time, speed, all those things. I have a CIP book, if you couldn't tell. But yeah, I've seen, so at Sonder we have that amazing COP pot that actually has its own pump. It's a huge stainless, basically sink that it has flow through, and we can run a full caustic acid and paracetic acid run on. If you would like to see that, check that out on the playlist. It's one of the more recent in brewery things that I have, so that's cool. It should be maybe in tutorials, so dig into that. That one's pretty cool. So yeah, you can do that and then put that back on the tank. When I was at Cartridge, I was a soaker, a scrubber, scrubbing with the towel as well, and then rinsing, and then I would put it back on a door that I had cleaned and scrubbed already. But I've done gasket on, I've done no gasket in the doorway. There's a wide range of things. The main thing is that you want to make sure that you're hitting it with chemicals at the appropriate temperature, with your caustic, whatever your caustic soda is. Get some agitation on it, get it clean, and yeah, the really questionable part is the internal portion. Remember that these are porous, and it's a good call out to really look at those gaskets, and probably depends on how often you turn them, but when you're taking those out, look around them for cracks. You don't have to try to rip them in half, but do get some backwards pressure on that, on those curved in, try to bend them out this way, and then kind of feel in there and look in there for cracks. You don't want that stuff happening. So get good visuals, get good chemical contact time, all that stuff, and then do your thing. So that's my take on it. Nick, so take that. Okay. Next question is from Rhonda on Instagram. How do you handle consumer feedback, both positive and negative? That's a good question. First of all, if you want to look at it from a brewer's standpoint, you can look at reviews, like Untapped. Is Beer Advocate a thing? I don't know. It was 40 years ago when I started drinking craft beer. All hail the Alstrom brothers. But yeah, I don't know, man. From a beer standpoint, and this kind of bleeds into the business side as well, I kind of let sales do the talking. If you're getting a lot of feedback of infected beer, it's a problem, and you want to start leveraging your network of trusted brewer friends, trusted palates. If you're having those things come up, that's an issue. So you do want to be able to have some honest sounding boards to be able to work with. As far as Untapped goes, I wouldn't get too caught up in if your Mexican lager is rated as a 3.6 or 3.7 on Untapped, but it's your number one seller in the pub and everybody loves it, and when it's not there, everybody's pissed. Don't sweat it. You're just not going to get high rankings on certain beer styles, right? But if you're getting off flavor feedback, maybe that's something to work with. From more of a business viewpoint, I can, from a business standpoint, how do you handle positive and negative feedback? Even keel, baby. Even as a brewer, right? Even keel. Some people are going to love your stuff and tell you it's great. Some people are going to say, meh. You know, always work on getting better. Try to make good drinkable beer. And keep a level head, because that stuff that, end of the day, if you're selling beer, if your sales are strong, that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing. That's kind of the direction I would be focusing on, that, Rhonda. But yeah, it's one of those things. Never too high, never too low. You know what I mean? I could probably use that advice sometimes. Usually for me, I get a little low at some points, but anyways, appreciate the question, Rhonda. Next question is from Eric via email. Hey, brother, I'm brewing a Saison tomorrow. By the way, I've already answered this question with this person, so like there's no timestamp warning on this. I'm brewing a Saison tomorrow. A little nervous about introducing STA1 into my brewery. I figure I'll clean the hell out of my FV after. Anything else I should focus on? So, what is it? Well, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. STA1 positive. That's what it'll say. So it's like diastaticus, I believe. It's a yeast strain that has the capacity to further break down non-fermentable sugars into fermentable sugars, which is often the secret sauce behind some of these saisons, right? Which are known for getting very dry. And yeah, so yeah, it's correct, Bobby. It is diastatic. But I was wondering I can't remember what the STA1, that might be the gene that's present. But anyways, somebody in the chat can clue me in if I'm not remembering right off the top of my head. But the idea is, they always list this. Different manufacturers list this now on their breakdown of what the strain is, the strain information chart. So the deal is with these yeasts is you don't want this stuff being left behind. You don't want a situation where you can get kind of like a diastaticus like infection in your brewery. So, but do know that this is it is just yeast. Some people may hate what I'm about to say, but yeah, I don't have an issue with running it. I probably would, and this is me, and maybe I'm a little bit crazy, but I would probably take everything off of that tank that is a soft or has a softer part of it. So any valve, because the valve seat is a soft, right? So any gaskets, valves, or sample ports that went into that after running through a regular CIP, I would probably pressure cook those things. Or if you have the autoclave, I would autoclave them afterwards. You don't have to. Maybe you think I'm crazy. That's fine. But I would do those things. I would take the any valve or gasket that came into contact with that beer. That's an option if you're very, very concerned about it. I would do the same thing on the bright tank side. Remember all the things that are soft that go into that tank, including the underneath gaskets that maybe don't get swapped out every time you clean, stuff like that. Also, I would look very closely at that transfer line that you used. It might be a situation where you would want to hook up a loop with your hot liquor tank once you have cleaned that with caustic and acid, and then loop that up and circulate that and circulate 185 degree water through it, Fahrenheit, or 85 C water through it for a half hour to kind of get, or maybe even a little bit longer, depending on whatever works for you, to get into sterilization range for that from a temperature standpoint. So yeah, those are some of the things you can do. If you really want to dive in on the keg side too, you can nerd out on that side as well. But I think those are some options. I think as long as you have really good CIP practices and you do some things like I just mentioned, you really shouldn't have any issue using that. I know people do less. I know like so Bobby F, STA1, the gene that encodes glucoamylase in yeast. Yeah, boy. Not sure what it stands for. Me either, but thanks for looking that up, Bobby. I appreciate it. Andrew's pumped because I'm using metric. There's only a few direct ones that I know, so I try to flex them when I can. You know what I mean. So, anyways, that's that. Thanks for the email, Eric. What's next, gang? Okay. Rock Spider on YouTube. Question. I do have a question on decoction. How do they physically do this in a large brewery? On homebrew scale, you take a ladle and scoop the grain out, but on a brewery scale, how do they get the grains out, and where do they boil it so that it does not burn your elements? Where the traditional boiler in Germany and the Czech Republic were they built custom for this? So great question. We just did this at Sonder, baby. We've been brewing Oktoberfest for a couple months, and we pull a decoction on this. Actually, a double decoction, double D's, double decoction. It's yeah. So physically, what's happening with the decoction is you are taking, you are in the mash tun. So we are mash tun, lauter tun, kettle at Sonder. And so what we do is we mash in, we have a short rest. A portion of that, a handful of hectoliters are pumped over into the kettle. That is boiled for X amount of time. It could be more, could be less, and then pumped back into the mash, mixed, pumped another X amount of hectoliters out, boiled, and pushed back in. You're gonna be driving. Yeah, my small system is 0.0378541 hectoliters exactly. So the idea is that you're going to be getting some melanoidin formation. You can get some depth of flavor and color. It's a cool process. It is very cool. Yeah, it's fun. So that's really how that works. Like, our setup is actually built for that. Okay. The setup that we have is actually built for decoction. So we have a different style pump. I'm trying to remember what the kind is, but it doesn't have the fins inside. It has almost like scoops in it. I'm trying to remember. But anyways, it's unique. And some people just have their regular centrifugal fin setup. But anyways, that's how we do that. We do leverage pumps in order to move that heavy mash over and then back over. So yeah, yes. And so these systems, Rock Spider, are meant to do this, to move stuff like that. Yeah. So that's how things are done can be done on the pro side. I appreciate your question. Couple of things. All right. Vein pump or face or open face impeller. That's not the word that I'm thinking of. And Birikoi, good to see it in there. It's a specific thing. And anyways, because the pump we have actually even says it on there. I think I have a picture on my phone, but I'll have to look it up another time. Next question is from JP on YouTube. I made a Helles and underpitched it apparently. It took 5 days to start. You think I should rebrew? And if so, could I use that same yeast, or is it all messed up now? We dug into this a little bit more, and they said, so I underpitched, and the yeast is apparently a slow starter. It took 5 full days for it to get going. So on the 5th day, I turned off the jacket and put the spunding on and raised the pressure to about 8 psi. It fermented out and started in the high 50s, that's Fahrenheit, and into the mid to high 60s at this pressure. It doesn't smell bad or anything when I take readings, but I am also wondering if it's just going to be bad based on the way it was fermented. I brewed it 2 weeks ago and it's still in the FV at about 62. I'm trying to hold it there for a bit to see if I can get some things to clean up. So yeah, JP, I've been in this situation before where I've gotten a pitch of yeast that was not confidence inspiring. And I've had that painful 5-day lag. Every day you come in and you want to see some bubbles and you don't see anything. So you took an interesting measure, which makes sense. You warmed it up. You allowed it to warm up. You did go with a pressure approach here. Pardon me, a little coffee down the wrong pipe. So by going with the pressure fermentation at this point, you're giving yourself the opportunity of maybe pushing back some of the potential esters that could be formed during this fermentation. So, I see your thought process there. We're really getting down into a situation where it's like, okay, so what do you do? When do you rebrew? Is that yeast worth it? I know you have a microscope, and I believe you can do viability. I don't know, man. I mean, you can take some counts on it and look at your viability. It might just be better to start over if you have really bad viability and a really bad cell count even after this. And remember when we were looking at some stuff a couple months ago, they were talking about how easily you can generate what's known as petite mutants, right? So that's why you want to kind of have ideal conditions. I wouldn't blame you for trying to start over with something. Do give this beer a chance to finish out. I don't think you're in a massive production pinch where you are, but give it a chance. I might even run a VDK diacetyl test on it a little bit early, get that thing heated up, cooled back down again, and do sensory on it. Check it out. Don't be afraid to dump. I know you're not, because you're a quality-minded brewer, and I have a lot of respect for you. But yeah, I mean, that would be kind of my thing, and then just build backwards from there, right? Don't do what you did before. I would talk to the manufacturer and talk to him about what happened and maybe adjusting that pitch rate. But yeah, check in with them on it. Have a little patience. If there's something if the beer is salvageable, that's great. If the yeast is salvageable, that's wonderful. But you definitely don't want to be killing two beers with one pitch. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Next question is from Sam on Reddit. Sam says, I'm about to get married and I have some anecdotal advice about the risks of wearing a simple stainless band on my left ring finger. Is this to do with risks of it falling into into small pack, or issues with it being caught in machinery? Yeah, we've probably all heard stories of fingers getting degloved or pulled off. There's a period of time where I was doing the silicone rings. I do wear my gold ring, my wedding ring at work. It's probably smart to not. But yeah, it is something you want to check into. Like I said, I did do some of the OSHA training stuff. Electricity's scary. So definitely, in my mind, if you're going to be doing anything on the electricity side, pull that thing off, hang it on your key ring or whatever. So it's still there, but there's a lot of things that can go wrong in a brewery. I know you can get them pulled off, you can get them caught on something if you fall. trying to grab. My wife's ring, it's crazy. It's actually teardrop shaped because she got hers caught and it just like pulled the metal up. And so it's like pointed at the top right now. But it still fits on her finger. But anyways, yeah. Rings are there, and there's a ton of those rings out there now. You can get something that, you know, kind of looks like a real ring, maybe not, but you know, you can, then they have different fancy things. But yeah. So anyways, Bondi, brother. Do I think the subscription for having a verified venue is worth it? I don't know, man. I'm not super familiar with it at all. I know that I hear places complain about it, but I would have to do more digging. I would have to do more digging. If you're a member of the Brewers Association, I would dig around a little bit, and get, yeah, I would hit up some folks out there. Well, the problem is there's not a lot of great places to ask, but maybe check out some forum stuff. But if you're not active on LinkedIn, it's not the greatest platform ever. Like it's fine for what it is. There's silly stuff on there, just as there is with anything else. But you might be able to tap into some of the community there, that the brewing community there, that is a little bit more knowledgeable with stuff like that. And LinkedIn to me tends to be a little bit more serious than Facebook stuff. It always blows my mind. Like there's guys that like they're Michigan, they're all Michigan guys, and they're not Michigan anymore. But like they're adult men, and they're just like, I don't know, they just crap on people. I don't even see where you and like the great thing is they're all like these like hippie peace love people. Nothing wrong with hippies, nothing wrong with peace and love, but then they're just complete asses to people that are asking genuine questions online, right? Get out of here. Anyway, that stuff drives me crazy. But that's kind of my take as far as the whole ring jewelry thing. Do try to keep yourself safe in the brewery. That OSHA 10 thing, I think they want to let you know that literally everything on earth will kill you. So do be careful out there. Do be careful out there. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I did have one other thing, and it was more of a comment, and the where it was more of a comment that Jay Spees left, and I do want to shout him out. He has Auger Brewing opening later this year, and he left a great comment, and I was tempted to read the whole thing, but first of all, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but obviously I do want him to have the shout out. Auger Brewing, Jay Spees, check that out. Follow that online. Follow that man's progress. He's been following and supporting the Adam Makes Beer channel for a very long time. And he left a really great, a really kind comment, and it was nice, and I'm thankful for it. I think that's what I'm saying. If you're anxious to know, is one of my recent videos. But at the end, he also said, "Love you, brother." You know, I think that I think one of the reasons I love what I do with this is I know how meaningful it was for me to have people share things with me when I was coming up. And so and even now, I mean, we're always coming up, right? You damn well better be, you know. If you're not, then what are you doing? You know, like, I don't know, do something else, get into another thing. I don't know, but we're here to get better, you know. And I don't know, I really appreciate it, and it's very gratifying to have folks be so excited for what we're doing here on the channel, and so grateful. So anyways, that's that. I do want to remind you, you are not going to want to miss on July 23rd my interview with David Lentz from Brewed Fiscally. He's an accountant, smart guy, good guy. You're gonna want to get his you're gonna want to get in on that podcast. Magic the Gathering unofficial audiobooks podcast. Welcome to the stream. Dancing Squirrel Brewing. Welcome. We use Ecos. I'm the worst with that stuff from the planning standpoint. To answer your question, we use Ecos. Excel can work. Just get good at it. And if you're on the pub side, man, it you can put it together pretty easy. But yeah, I would lean on Excel. Those other things are expensive and really only worth it if you're doing distro. But you're not going to want to miss the 23rd, 7 p.m. with David Lentz of Brewed Fiscally. You're not going to want to miss out on thanking our sponsors at Blickman. Just shoot them an email. I had that email in there. Tell them how much you appreciate them supporting the channel. If you can, if you haven't already, please subscribe, like, ring the bell, all that stuff. If you do have some scratch and can be a monthly member, that would be fantastic. If you don't, no biggie, baby. But in the meantime, be good to your people. Enjoy this beautiful weather if you are in this hemisphere. If you're in the other hemisphere and it's getting cooler or whatever, yeah. I was just listening to a thing recently, which I'm trying to focus on a little bit. And I'm trying to be, I'm surrounded by beautiful people in my family. And I have tiny people in my house that everything is still magic to them. And I'm working on getting into their headspace more than I am in my own. So I wish that for you as well this month. Recapture some of that childhood wonder, man. There's a lot of beautiful, amazing things happening around us all the time. And just be good to your people. And I look forward to talking to y'all later this month. Hey, and also Bondi is talking, first time seeing Adsy's legs. I've got shorts on, baby. And they come down. I feel a little self-conscious, but I mean, they're definitely not as short as Dylan's. But yeah, man. And then I realized, so I just move a lot, and I realized as I was streaming, this one was going up a little bit high. I mean, that it's a PG-13 podcast. You know what I mean? A little white meat. You know. All right, you guys. Thanks for sticking with me, and I will see you later this month. Have a great night.